All right, welcome back. Let's take you back to our top story, that story about the convicted child rapist, Nicholas Ninow, who's being allowed to appeal his sentence. He was sentenced to life in prison after he assaulted a 7-year-old in the bathroom of a Dross restaurant in Pretoria. He claimed he was high on drugs at the time. For more on this, legal expert Nthabiseng Dubazana joins us now. Thank you very much for your time, Nthabiseng, here on eNCA. Now, firstly, is Nicholas Ninow, do we know whether he's appealing only his sentence or his conviction, or is it both?
He can only appeal his sentence. Remember, he pleaded guilty, and then his plea was read into record. If I'm not mistaken, he pleaded guilty in terms of Section 105, capital letter A of the CPA. So if I'm not mistaken, then it should only be an appeal for just the sentence, because he did admit to all the allegations that were put forth before him. I don't recall there being a full-on trial where witnesses were called. Instead, it was mitigation, whereby the mother of the child, as well as I think a Smolangana statement of the child, was read out into record as to what happened. I do not recall it was a full-on trial, so it can only be a sentence.
Now, he has spent quite a lot of time in prison, or maybe not a lot in terms of the fact that he was sentenced to life. But I think the verdict was actually handed down either very early last year or the year before. So he's already served a bit of time at the Kgosi Mampuru prison. And the High Court in Pretoria not granting him leave to appeal. I thought that meant if the High Court sees no prospect of him, of it being found to have erred in its sentence, that he can't go anywhere else. So you can, in fact, still approach the Supreme Court of Appeal to appeal against the High Court's decision not to grant you that appeal.
Yeah, so that's what they did now. Usually it is a very rare occasion that this happens. It doesn't happen as often. Like you have just stated, once the High Court has denied you leave to appeal, as the court that did convict and sentence you, usually that's where the road ends. But under I don't know what kind of circumstances that the Supreme Court of Appeal would allow for such a direct appeal to be made to them. So perhaps in that direct appeal that was made by the defense attorneys, there was some grounds that the Supreme Court of Appeal feels that they're justified in Nicholas Ninow having his appeal being granted. I would assume the basis, because I'm not privy to his application for leave to appeal. However, I would assume that the basis that the defense attorney is relying on is that he did plead guilty, therefore he showed a sign of remorse, and he did not waste the court's time. And it would be in the interest of justice for him to be given a lesser sentence than a life sentence. So I'm assuming they're trying to look at something between 10 years and 15 years. I do not foresee the Supreme Court of Appeal giving anything less than 10 years, because I do believe this was a very heinous crime, as it was stipulated in the trial, in the hearing itself in the beginning in the High Court. But I think those are the bases as to why the leave to appeal was probably granted. But it doesn't say just because leave to appeal was granted, it's a guarantee that the sentence will be reduced. Just now, he gets double what he has now. So just because leave to appeal was granted to you does not automatically mean that your sentence will reduce, or whatever request you made in your application will be granted to you. It can most likely work against him, and then he gets maybe 25 times 2, and then he's now stuck there for 50 years. He will still have an avenue to apply to the Constitutional Court as well and see if he'll try his luck there as well.
All right. Thank you very much for your time. My understanding from what we've been reading is that he is actually appealing both. His appeal in terms of the verdict is the premeditated part. He feels he shouldn't have been found guilty of premeditating the rape. He said he's guilty of rape, but not the premeditation. But of course, it would be very interesting to find out more as this goes. Nthabiseng, thank you very much for your time.